Hello. So yes, basically this is something that I just wanted to go over kind of quickly. I'll make it very quick because I hate really long videos. Wicking RDAs and how it's super important, and how if you do it really badly it's not very nice. Shut up, cat. And if you do it really well, it's a lot better and you get a lot better vape. And yeah, and it's not something that people seem to talk about very much. So I'll show you kind of what I've got and how it runs and give you an idea, and then I'll show you how I do it. So if you have a look here, yeah, wicks like pretty much like super dry. That's white fluffy cotton right there. Okay. Now this is in the Kennedy RDA, but this applies to any build, any RDA, doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to juice it up, and you'll notice that I'm not going to use a super huge amount. I'm not going to like fill up the drip well because it's got a big one. I'm just going to like get the wicks kind of painted like that, just so they're kind of juicy. That's one dropper's worth basically, nothing crazy, nothing mental. Cool. So like that's not like full of liquid or anything, it's just enough. Okay, I'm running it at 80 watts, no temperature control or anything like that on this M80. Yeah, so 80 watts, it's a 0.2 something twisted coil, yeah. So basically I'll vape it for a bunch, and yeah, so yeah. I'll try and just blast through this quickly. So count the puffs. 1. So, excuse me, nicotine. So at this point, I can kind of tell it's starting to get a wee bit dry, and let's have a wee look. Yeah, it's starting to get like a wee bit kind of dry, it's starting to go white, and at this point you'd probably be like, if you looked at that, you'd be like, oh snap, I need to re-wick. But not really. So when you wick it like this, even though it looks pretty much like white, and that's kind of back to where it was when it started, it's kind of fluffy. Even at 80 watts or whatever watts you are running at, you can still just kind of keep puffing. I'm still getting flavour. I'm not very good at hiding when I get a dry hit because I've got baby lungs, so if I get a dry hit, you would know. Still getting flavour. And now, there, I started to get the slightest hint of dryness, and that was what, like 15, 20 puffs or something? Like 1-ish second puffs, not too long, 80 watts, but that was from one drip, not even using the drip well, and I would still take another hit off that and be pretty comfortable with it. In fact, I'm gonna go for that. But yeah, I could tell it was getting dry like 10 hits ago, and I could have reduced it then, and then I would never get a dry hit, because you can kind of tell. But even if you forget and you take another hit and another one, you still get the flavour. You know it's kind of getting to the point where it's needing to get re-wicked at some point, re-dripped. But yeah, still good, even though it's all fluffy. So yeah, that's that. And basically it's something that I wish I'd been shown. That's probably kind of hot. Something I wish I'd been shown a long time ago when I was getting into dripping, and son of a... And my coils were good, and I used good atomizers, and everything was good, but the wicks were just rubbish, and it wasn't helpful, and it just was not fun, because I'd be getting dry hits and the wicks would just look all juicy and lovely, but it would be dry and I'd have to re-drip every like 2 puffs and it would be rubbish. So I'll show you how you do that, and I'll make it as quick as I can. So first things first, you want to make sure that your coils are heating up evenly. These are silly fused Clapton thingies, so they'll take ages to heat up, but they're even. That's the big thing. If they're not heating up evenly, that's a problem to start with, so fix that and come back. But there's plenty of videos explaining that, who cares. You also want them to be centered if you can, ideally, just because it makes it neater. Cool. Cotton. So little cotton pads, you get these from local vape shops or online or anything like that. Mine's are like that size, and they've got the two kind of outside skin bits and the fluffy stuff in the middle. So what you're going to do is take about 2/3 of the fluffy stuff and peel it off with one side, and then leave the other third and the other bit of skin over there, and that's not being used. So you've got your pad there with fluffy and flat on that side. So next up, you want to just grab it and kind of stretch it out a bunch. This bit takes a wee while, and it's probably the most annoying bit, but you get used to it. And basically you just want to keep stretching it out until it kind of gets to the point where sort of even, I don't know if you can kind of see that, sort of even the whole way through, and you can kind of see through it. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, where you can kind of see through it all the way, and there's no big clumps of cotton, and it's all kind of uniform, and it should end up being like about 1.5 times as wide as it was originally. So that's that there. I'll explain why we do this in a second. Cool, so you got that. Then these end bits, which are all kind of thick, you just grab them and tear them off because they're no use. So you're left with that, and it was skin on that side and it was fluffy there, but now kind of fluffy all over. Then you take it and you split it in two, just tear it somewhere in the middle. So you've got two bits, one for each coil, and that's you. Next up, you take what was the flat skin bit and turn it up, and then you want to start rolling it. Now you just kind of fold it over on itself, just one, two, just a couple of folds to get it going, and then you can start kind of making it into a roll. Now you don't want it to be like super tight, you want it to be kind of quite loose, kind of like a Swiss roll, but made out of cotton and with air instead of jam. So that's an analogy. So it's quite like loose and fluffy, and yeah, there's a lot of like air inside there, and it's quite thick compared to like your coils. It's probably like 2 or 3 times the diameter. So that's that. And then what you do is you just take one end and pinch it right up, and you really need to squeeze it. Now we're going to install it, and first we're going to lock this so we don't burn ourselves, because that's bad. Get that wee guy. I'm going to try and do this backwards. Slide it through. Now, when it goes through, despite everything you may have heard or seen, you really want it to be like quite tight. And for whatever reason, that works. So it should be at the point where you're like having to hold your coil in place to get it through. And then just pull it back a wee bit so it's kind of even on both sides. And then we'll do the other side. Cool, so there's your two guys like that. Next up, you want to cut it to the right length. Oh, my feet are dead. Now, you only need it to reach the bottom of the juice well. It doesn't need to go any further than that. The juice well on here goes to about there, so we're going to cut it to about that length. So I kind of know where that is. I can just eyeball it. It's about there. And actually, I'll do this side first because I can. Cool, snippy snip, and snippy snip. And you'll notice I'm not leaving enough to do like a big loop-de-loop and a big donut underneath. You don't need that. You just need exactly enough to go down and touch the juice well and no more. If you're running like an Aeolus or something with no juice well, then it'll be a really, really tiny little stubby bit, and that's all you need. So yeah, that's what works. Next up, just grab tweezers or a screwdriver or something and kind of just fluff these out a wee bit. This is kind of hard to do when I'm not looking at it. Fluff them out just to make them all even, and then we just take them and pop them down to the juice well. And once again, this is going to seem like this is too much cotton. Everyone's always like, oh, cotton, less is more, blah blah blah, but they're wrong, so who cares? You really just want, I mean, I don't know, I've tried so many different ways of wicking less is more, and with the skin bits and without the skin bits, and rolling it and pre-wetting it with juice and all these different kinds of things, and this is the best way by far. And I wish somebody had shown me how to do this like 2 years ago, because it would have been so helpful. And it's not until recently that somebody showed me it, and I enjoy dripping 10 times more, because you can just drip and never worry about getting a dry hit and not have to do any kind of temp control stuff. So that is what it'll look like when it's fully wicked up. Like I said, it's gonna, like, from what you'll know, it's gonna feel like it's too much cotton, and it's gonna seem like, how is that gonna work? But it'll work, I promise. And to give you an idea, there's the Kennedy. So when you fill it with juice, it will kind of juice up a wee bit. I'll just do that now. This is moon sugar from Mr. Good Vape. Not that anyone cares, but yeah, that's what it is. And it's delicious. I highly recommend it if you've never tried it. It's like a butterscotch sugar cookie, whatever that is. And it is tasty. Anyway, so yeah. I'm making a mess. Now that's what happened. So these wicks like hold a ton of juice on their own, and then you can fill up the juice wells as well, and you can honestly puff for like 5 minutes on and off straight and not have to re-drip, and you can just keep going, and the wicks will be white, and you'll be like, how is this still not dry? And it's not, and it's just so much nicer, and you don't have to worry about it, and everything's neat, and that's what you want. So that is how I do my wicks. Let's unlock this. That's how I do my wicks. That's what works for me. I highly recommend you give it a shot. It works really, really well. You don't have to mess around with rayon or eco wool or any of that stuff. Just do this, do what I showed you, give it a try, and I promise you, you will enjoy dripping more, because it is much better. Cool.